So we keep an eye on that as well. So it's, yeah, the governments are falling all over the place, but it's for the reason you mentioned. Well, Steve, that was a great reel you had on, kind of governments falling around the world, and Ben had a really good update on Germany. That could have been twice as long. In Romania, I would say a mildly pro-Russian, or at least wants to talk to Russia, candidate won a free and fair election. He was going to be the next president of Romania, and the Supreme Court of Romania invalidated the election and said, sorry, you have to do it over again. In other words, we're supposed to be fighting for democracy in Ukraine. That's a joke. Zelensky's term ran out last May. He's a military dictator right now. There is no democracy in Ukraine. But now, as of now, there's no democracy in Romania because they just invalidated the election. Of course, we have the situation in Korea, different fact patterns, but your basic notion that governments around the world are falling is correct. I have a little more insight on our friend Freeland. I know her very well. She and I were debate partners. So just tell the story briefly. A high-profile debate. We spent months, talking to each other, preparing, et cetera, et cetera. We do the debate. I thought she was a pretty good friend. Like I said, we talked all the time. Well, we lost the debate. Hey, you win some, you lose some. But there was a big gala afterwards, and we went and said, we'll go to the bar, have a drink, congratulate our opponents and all that. She turned her back on me. She never spoke to me again. I mean, she was a snake, and she still is. And by the way, and she just stuck the knife in Trudeau's back. We saw that yesterday. But here's the thing with Chrystia. This is being positioned as it's all about the tariff wars. Trump or Trudeau's not tough enough. She'll be tougher, et cetera. It's really very much about Ukraine. Her grandfather was a Nazi sympathizer in Ukraine in World War II, probably more than that, but that much is very well documented. She's rabidly pro-Ukrainian, shows up at rallies in Ukrainian dress, a total warmonger, very much in the World Economic Forum orb, if you will. And so part of what she's doing, she's trying to run Trudeau off the road. She wants to be the party leader and ultimately the prime minister. But a lot of her motivation is about keeping the war going in Ukraine. So you need to kind of see where that's coming from. We mentioned Romania and Germany. I think Ben had it exactly right. The more conservative party there is set for major gains. And let's not forget the UK. What happened there? So Labour has the biggest majority by seats, but they had a worse performance by votes than they did the last time they ran. And the point is, they have what's called first past the post, meaning if you have three candidates, the one who gets the most votes gets the seat, even if it's nowhere near a majority. Well, what happened was Reform, which is Nigel Farage, and the Tories split the votes in a lot of constituencies. So the Labour candidate won, but if you combine Reform and the Tories, they got the most votes. So we'll see what happens there. But we'll leave it to our friend Nigel Farage. But some kind of combination between Reform and Tories would win the next election. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. So the governments are falling all over the place, but it's for the reason you mentioned. Well, that's right. This is, Scott Bessent's 3-3-3 plan. Deficits at 3% of GDP, growth at 3%, real growth at 3%, but with 2% inflation or 3% inflation, your nominal growth will actually be 5 or 6%, and that's what counts for debt purposes. Real growth, it counts for everyday Americans, but if you're trying to manage the debt is nominal and growth is nominal. So if you get 3% deficits and 6% growth or 5% growth, you're growing faster than you're adding more debt, and your debt to GDP ratio is going down. You're never going to pay off the national debt. You don't have to. You just have to make it sustainable and have the ability to roll it over. But the way you do that is to grow faster than you're adding debt, which is exactly what Bessent is proposing. It's this is fifth grade math, but the point is try doing it, and that's the difficult part. But you're right, it's an issue all over the world. But she wants to take a hard line. She wants to fight the trade war. Good luck. I mean, Canada and the U.S. have one of the largest bilateral trading relationships in the world, period. And Canada relies on, it's the USMCA, U.S.-Mexico-Canadian agreement. It's the successor to NAFTA. It's a better deal for the U.S., but Canada is utterly dependent on that. Well, Canada is a rich country, a very small population, about 30 million, and between, in effect, free electricity coming from hydroelectric in Quebec and the oil output from Alberta, even though they've tried to squash it, they can afford a lot of benefits that other countries can't, but they cannot afford a trade war with the United States, and that's where they're heading, and that's where they'll end up with her in charge. But she's playing a deeper game, and again, it has a lot to do with trying to hurt Trump, hurt the U.S. economy, and support Ukraine.
Jim.
Well, you're right about the intelligence community. It's been a long time there, and it's not that they're stupid or incapable. It's that they have a hidden agenda. So they're pursuing their agenda, not what Trump's proposing. We can't get John Radcliffe and Tulsi Gabbard in there fast enough. Here's the thing with Syria: the notion that you've got these rebels. They took Damascus. They're going to set up some government. The Biden White House actually. So why don't we have the UN and have a kind of a convention and get all the groups and come up with a constitution and have? Are you kidding me? There is no government in Syria. That's the point. It's not even, is it Turkish government? Is it, Alawite? Is it these rebels? There is no government in Syria. That's very critical to understand. Turkey's going to try to run the show, but they're not going to be able to. Their concern is really with the border, the Kurds, and the extent to which the Kurds have interest inside Turkey. So, yeah, that's a legitimate interest for Turkey, but no one's in charge in Syria right now. Israel's taking what they want, and why not? But I would look for much worse results coming out of Syria because of that complete absence of any government. And ISIS is on the rise again. All the things that Trump got rid of ISIS in a matter of months, actually, after several years of a rise under Obama. But the intelligence community, they're still living with the legacy of Brennan. John Brennan and Hayden to some extent, which is they actually sympathize with Iran. If you sympathize with Iran, this is the kind of result you get. On Ukraine, just quickly, Biden is what they're doing. If you're familiar with chess moves, this is called a fork. And a fork is when I put my piece in a place and I attack two of your pieces at once. You can save one, but you're going to lose the other. So either way, you lose. So this is what they're doing to Trump right now. There's something called the Ghost Fleet. Russia's exporting oil. They're putting it in tankers that not insured in London, whatever. They're working around the sanctions and getting the oil out. Biden just put on sanctions that say the Ghost Fleet cannot call on any port, anywhere in the world, et cetera. They'll keep doing what they're doing. But here's the dilemma for Trump. That's going to raise the price of oil. Russia can do the workaround, but it's going to raise the price of oil. So you dump it in Trump's lap and you say, if Trump removes the sanctions, he'll be a Putin puppet. But if he keeps the sanctions on, they'll blame him for inflation. So that's a fork. You lose either way. The other one has to do with the escalation of the war. We're firing missiles into Russia. Russia came back with a Reshnik missile, which basically makes tactical nuclear weapons obsolete. This thing, it doesn't blow things up. It turns them into dust. But everyone would have thought the U.S. would have got the message. No, we're continuing to fire ATACMS into Russia. So, again, this is going to be dumped on Trump. So now if Trump continues that path, which they're just aggressive escalation all along, the Ukrainians are going to lose the war. That's just a matter of time. But Trump will get blamed for it if the war continues. On the other hand, if Trump negotiates something, and why should Russia give up any territory? It's a war. When you win wars, you get to keep stuff. That's what the U.S. foreign policy establishment doesn't seem to understand. So if Trump negotiates the peace that Putin will insist on, he'll be a Putin puppet. But if he continues the war, he'll get blamed for losing the war. So what Biden's doing is very clever because they're putting Trump in, as I said, the fork. He has choices, but he's going to lose one way or the other. The solution for that is for Trump to get ahead of it with education. Just say, talk to the American people and say, here's what Biden's doing. It's not in our best interest. We need to get around it. And the third thing, very quickly, you and I talked almost a year ago about stealing the Russian assets, U.S. lawfully owned, Russia's owned U.S. Treasury securities. They've been seized by the United States. That happens all the time. But now they've actually been converted into a loan to Ukraine. They've been stolen, and they had a little party in Janet Yellen's office. They got, I don't know if there was any champagne there, but they were high-fiving when they saw the wire transfer go through on the ledger, et cetera. This is another nail in the coffin of the dollar. I'm not saying the dollar collapses overnight. Actually, the dollar is quite strong right now, except relative to gold. But they're destroying the U.S. dollar over time with these by stealing these assets. So Biden's doing everything possible to basically burn down the United States, what I call the Viking funeral, before Trump gets in. But Trump needs to be alert to it. I'm not sure Waltz and General Kellogg are really quite as attuned to what Biden's actually doing as they should be.